Okay, welcome back to our series of bark shading assignments. This one is A3, and this top square is going to be the opposite side of the foot, of the toes of the foot. And then this bottom square is going to be these bottom knuckles of the hand, if you can see that. Okay, just to give you context in case that's helpful. So we're going to get started. I've got my number 2 pencil here. I'm gonna make sure it's sharp. So in this last assignment, I saw dramatic improvement. So I'm very excited about that. We're gonna start out with a number 2 because that's what I'm expecting you to have in most cases. We'll get started and then I'm gonna talk about my pencil sharpener because I was asked about that by a student, which was a very good question. I appreciate those kinds of questions. So we're just gonna look and find the articulation points, the intersection marks, and I should be able to look straight across here and see where things are. Okay, so if I go across here, about, let's say I'm not quite halfway, and up a little bit, that shows me this line here, so I can find this shape. And then I've got a little slice of this toe. I want to pay attention to this because these are going to match up when I put these grids together. So I'm always checking, I'm always looking back and forth. Okay. So now I'm going to start to shade and just do a first pass here to get some value in. I'm not pressing hard. I'm going to rely on layering to build value, just like we talked about a lot of times before. So these toes have kind of some angles in them. And in my observation, toes actually do that. So those are the kinds of things that make this believable. So it's easy to say in your mind, oh, toes are round. But we saw in the last drawing, and we're seeing again in this one, that there's a little bit of a sharp angle there. So we want to make sure that we get that in. And this drawing isn't too complicated. We're going to watch our edges. Some of what we can improve on in terms of looking carefully and then showing what we see here in the drawing is these edge transitions. So sometimes they're pretty hard edges. Like right here with this shadow, right here in between these two toes. Obviously, these contour lines are pretty distinct here. But when we get to areas like this, where we have this really soft gradation, we're gonna rely on our pencil, our kneaded eraser, and we're gonna pounce on those in order to get things in there. That are smooth transitions. We can't entirely do it with a pencil to the degree that we possibly could. We could just draw with a pencil, but we're gonna go ahead and watch the transitions a little more carefully and use our eraser. Okay, so I was asked about my pencil sharpener. These are the same ones that I have at school that I bought for the classroom. Some of them are different because I inherited a couple. But the ones that I ordered are this Maped brand. Let's see if you can see that. Okay, and these fit in your hand really nicely. There's something about the contour and the way that everything's a little bit rounded that just feels good in your hand. I think the key to this being a good sharpener is that the housing is metal and the blade is metal. I have never replaced a blade on a pencil sharpener like this, but they do sell blades and you can fit them in. This is just like what we see at in the utility knives that we use at school. There are these little divots and there are grooves in the blade that fit it right in there the way it's supposed to, so that it sits just right. This is the brand that I've always bought. This is the brand that I'm familiar with. I can buy this on Dick Blick for 85 cents. Now, the problem with buying things on Dick Blick is that the shipping would cost you $12 unless you want to spend $60 on something else. So this is a great thing to try to find at an art store. We have Jerry's Artorama near us. Most art stores have completely shut down or been bought out by big places like Dick Blick. So look for something like this, but this is not an expensive item. And I got on Jerry's website and I tried to figure out what they actually would have. They must have something like that, but I couldn't figure it out from their website. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of leaving you hanging there, but this is not an expensive item. I don't think you could get this at Joann's or Michael's, but it might be worth looking or paying $2 for whatever they have and see if it works. If you have a 2-hole sharpener, that means, generally, I don't want to assume anything, but that means that you would start in one hole and then go to the other hole, and the second hole would change the angle of the sharpening and expose more lead for you. So just like we talk about when we're sharpening our pencils with a knife. Just exposing lead. And so an artist pencil sharpener is gonna maybe do that a little bit better than what you would get at Walmart for back to school. Definitely do it better, but you know, the other place you might be able to find something like that is Staples. I know Staples has a pretty extensive section of Statler pencils and drawing tools. They have like a drafting section, and so Staples might have something like that. I've heard really good things about Prismacolor pencil sharpeners, but those usually are in a plastic case, so I don't know if the sharpener itself is all metal, like the housing and the blade, and then they put it in a plastic case. I don't know. I don't have a Prismacolor pencil sharpener because I'm fine with my 85-cent Maypad that I've had for years and years. But if you did a lot of pencil drawing, you might need to change the blade. Okay, so I want to pay special attention to these soft edges. So I've got a soft edge here, I've got a soft edge here, and I have a really soft edge that transitions a lot right here. So in order to imitate that softness, I've got to pounce this a little bit and go back and forth a little bit with my pencil. And if it's ever helpful, I try to hang these drawings on the board in my classroom so that you can actually see what they look like. I know some things are hard to translate on a video. The internet is like a photograph. The computer is like a photograph. It flattens things. All right, I might have this totally wrong on here. Maybe this is actually narrower. And I need to change this around. Okay, so when I want to clean up these edges, I'm going to use my white eraser because that's a little more efficient at that. If I don't stay inside the lines or I want to get rid of some of these construction marks, I'm going to do that too because I want this to look as clean as the original. It's fine to go outside the lines or not be really exact while you're drawing, but then clean it up at the end. Think of this as a finished drawing. How can you bring it all the way to finish? It is an exercise, but we're treating it as a finished drawing because we're going to put all these together. They're going to be so beautiful. I make these videos pretty late at night because my house is quiet and because that's when I have time to do it. I hope you guys aren't having to do these late at night, but this is a different kind of work than your other schoolwork. So it will rest your brain actually in a way that just sleeping will not. So this could be actually not too bad for you to do. But this isn't going to be the same type of cognition that your other assignments are requiring. So if you need a break from something else, do your drawing homework. Okay, I feel like I'm going a little slow here, but that's okay. So I want to look at these shadows. I've got like the least little bit of reflected light here, and some of you have done really nicely with this reflected light. It brings a depth to the drawing to observe these kinds of things that the drawing doesn't otherwise have. So we've talked about visual sensitivity. We've talked about seeing more deeply as you keep looking at the original drawing. And if you can capture that reflected light, we've also started to think, all right, I'm going to switch to a 2H, sorry. See, I told you it was late. Just because I can't get that real lightness that I want. I'm still going to pounce with my eraser, but I just want to make it lighter than I can get with a 2H. I'm holding my pencil a little more loosely. And I'm laying down more graphite than what I want to end up there, but because this is a lighter pencil, it's still going to make a difference. And I was talking to you about something and now I can't remember. Okay, so we're going to pounce these edges to soften this, and I'm just going to leave a little bit of the graphite on here. And it even looks like, I don't know if that's what that is, but it looks like the fingerprints like on the toes right here. So I don't want to make too much of this, but I'm just gonna experiment here. Okay, 6B seems like overkill. I'm gonna use a 3B. Try to get some of this darkness in here, and then we'll pounce this just to soften it. So Bargue in these drawings gives us a pretty good example of contour line and shading using both in an effective way, because we can certainly see the contour lines, but they don't distract from the articulation of the light and shadow on the form. So he uses them both together pretty nicely. Okay, so now I thought that this was actually completely light, like there was no value on there, but now that I'm looking at it, I say there is value. Now how this matches up with the other toe that I drew, I'm gonna have to look at those at some point together, but we're gonna treat this as an independent drawing for now. I'm using a 2 each. I'm going back and forth. Okay. I want to get rid of these kind of scribbly lines that I made to construct this. I want to feed this. I want that nice transition, because do you see the difference between that edge that's ever so soft but basically a clear contrasting distinction, and my shape's a little off. I'm gonna bring my shape up a little bit. I think I might have this wrong. So here's an advantage of layering, is that I won't ever get the like pristine paper back, but I can get really close. Do you see how I can just erase all of this? Because I wasn't pressing hard into this paper at any point. I was just building layers. So I can change this all around. This is maybe going across like this a little more. Yeah, but I want to make a contrast between this harder edge and this soft edge, because that brings contrast and interest. Okay, now I'm back to a 2 each, so I'm not laying down so much graphite. I can get a weaker mark there. I'm gonna pounce that. Still not totally happy with this. You guys may have drawn this better at first than I did, so you might be ready to move on, but I'm gonna go ahead and struggle with this for another minute. And sharpening my eraser would be a good idea at this point, but I don't have a knife in front of me, so. So as I'm doing this, I am losing some of the luminosity of the paper. That's inevitable. And I don't want to overwork the paper, but accuracy is more important. This is a drawing exercise. But if this were a finished work that I were going to sell or exhibit, I would have to balance accuracy with how hard I'm being on the paper. I'm still doing that probably a little bit in my mind. Or maybe I work all the way through it and then I decide I need to do it again because I've lost some of the lightness. I'm back to 2H. That was a 3B. Back to 2H. And because these lines are so strongly going in this direction, I could imitate that with my pencil. This is linear shading, if I'm following the contour of the shape of what I'm drawing. Okay, this is a little overdone here, a little bit too much graphite. But some of you guys are doing beautiful drawings and then you're getting hung up on these edges, and I want you to notice, is there a hard edge or a soft edge here? And then work on mastering control over those edges. Okay. I'm not sure I'm totally happy with this second toe, but we're gonna move on and you guys can do better than me. But I do have the hard edge and the soft transition, and not too bad, not too bad. Okay, but you can see in here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I can see this contour between these toes, like I see it over here. That's an important articulation. So if you can't see that, look for it. Look for it right now in this drawing, and that's gonna help you next time. Okay, now I'm gonna try to keep this high enough that you can see me do this whole next drawing. This is taking up a lot more of the paper. And the box is more full on this one, so this is an easy line here. We're just going to clip this corner and go straight across here and find the intersection mark. This intersection mark is down here. This is just a little bit lower, and then it comes out at an angle. This one almost hits this one. Okay, so we have a lot to put in here, so we want to be accurate about where these shadows are. And this shape right here. Okay, so we've got an intersection point right about here. I could even look at it in comparison to the toe up here, because anything that I can measure against, like I always tell you, we want more points to measure against. We want more things on the page. So we can think about how wide this is. If I really need to, I could cite it. Okay. We look at where this is in relationship. here I'm going to chase this shape, but I don't want to get too far over. I've got to stay in bounds here. I've got this much space. And then I'm going to show myself where everything is. I've got a shape right here. And then I've got a shape here. I'm going to watch all these things at once. This maybe is too far over. I'm going to show myself the values in here pretty quickly. Got these wrinkles in the knuckle, and this makes me think maybe this one's too far over. No, it's okay. Do you see these knuckles right here? Those are points that I can use to help me see, am I where I think I am in relationship between everything. All right, and this doesn't look like much, but we're gonna keep going. There's so much dark value here that we just need to get it in. All of this has some value. So now I'm starting to work with relative values because I've got values on this hand. I got a lot of shadow here, so I'm going to build layers patiently. I can draw fast, but I'm not going to add pressure because that layering is what gives me control and what gives the drawing its quality. Can I get these darker values laid in? I have something under my paper. So that's a dark spot. It's created by the texture under my paper. I have like an eraser, little chrome or something. So these edges I want to be softer than what I've drawn here, but I'm going to do that with my eraser. Okay, so I'm going to continue dark value down here. My pencil's getting dull. Okay, I have values here and here and a little bit over here on the edge that are so light that I'm not going to do those with a number 2. Okay, and for this, these values are deep enough that because I have something other than a number 2 here, I'm going to switch. And we're going to do this with something darker. So I've got a 4B. I'm gonna sharpen, and I'm looking at this edge. There's just like the least bit of softness because this is a hand and skin. It's not, that softness is retained in this drawing, the softness of the texture of the skin. So I want to pay attention to that. Because at the end, this is still a drawing of something. And this doesn't retain the hardness of like plastic bottle or something like that. It still needs to have the texture as a finished work that it should. And I'm gonna get that texture just by like scumbling along the edge a little bit. I'm just gonna kind of let things not be hard. I'm gonna come up to this edge and I'm not gonna sharpen it too much with my pencil. Okay, so these are linear here, these shapes. So I'm gonna pay attention to that. So I'm gonna draw a line and then soften it with my pencil. And then here's like a dark area right here. I'm gonna draw the line and sharpen it with my, soften it with my pencil. Sorry, can't talk and draw at the same time. Before I get that too worked in, I'm going to go to a different area because I'm just always wanting to keep working all over the drawing. I don't want to finish one area and move on to the next until I'm at that very last final stage. I'm always looking at things in relationships. Because if you look at the way light and shadow falls on skin, it absorbs the light in a particular way that doesn't completely repel it. And this is where drawing from observation comes in handy. Helps pick up on these subtleties. And you guys in class are painting textures, and that's going to help inform you. Inform your visual memory and your understanding of how light hits different materials. That sensitivity helps you sort of crave the right texture. Okay, my pencil's getting dull again. I'm gonna have to start to come in here with an eraser and clean this up, and a number 2H in order to start to bring some of these really subtle tones in here. But I'm gonna do one more pass all over with the 4B where I think this depth of shadow lurks. I'm looking deep in here as I'm moving along. I'm seeing things more and more deeply. Just because as I get one thing laid in, another thing becomes apparent.
Okay, so I can see the direction of my line. I'm just gonna put a pass through here in a different direction just to soften that a little bit, and then I'll come back to it. Okay, so I want to get these really subtle shades in here. So I'm going to pick up my 2H. And I'm going to put a pass through here, and then I'm going to work with my eraser on some of these edges. But I know that the 2H is laying down less graphite than the number 2 HB pencil would. So I'm going to come back in here with my eraser, but I need something to go back and forth with. Okay, so I got something in here. It looks a little messy. I'm gonna pounce some of it out. Yeah, I still have strong directional lines in here. So
So I'm in here with a 2H, but over here I've ended with a 4B, so I'm gonna have to transition between these. I have a 6B. I'm gonna go all the way to a 6B, just right here in this area. I don't want to press hard. I don't want to put a shine on this drawing. Just gonna patiently build this up. Okay, I've got to somehow get this to make sense. So I get this dark edge in here. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my number 2 pencil. This is thinner than I've got it. This is not quite right, so gonna pull this out and work on it again. Redraw just this shape. This bumps up just a little bit more than what I have. This is just that little crease. There's a subtlety there. And again, I want a soft edge. Okay, I'm putting my 6B down. I'm gonna get up my 3B. And there's a little bit of darkness right here. Let's see, it looks too hard. I've still got to work with this to soften this whole transition in this area. I don't want to have distinct shapes. I want them to blend just like I see them. So this is darker over here. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of a spot here that I don't want. And there's a lightness right here. I'll preserve that. Okay, it's getting closer. Okay, this is my 3B. Soften this edge. I'm gonna darken this right here. Because I need this to be darker around this crease in order to really work, gotta use a darker pencil. Okay, so takes time to build these darks up. Okay, a pencil is not gonna let me get these as dark as printer ink, but just gonna give one more pass here. I don't know what you can see. Sometimes it's helpful to me if I hold it up like this so I can see it without the glare of the light. Okay. I'm going to sharpen this just a little more than it is. I'm going to bring this in a little bit darker. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. I can push with these shapes a little bit more, but this is okay. I'm gonna clean up these edges. I have a little bit of space where I colored outside the lines. We're gonna cut those eventually, but I just want want it to appear nice and clean. If you find that your drawing is getting smudged in your sketchbook pocket, then just put a piece of computer paper over top of it to keep it preserved. Are we happy with this? I want to get back from it. Okay. All right, and I'll see you guys next time.